Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a challenge reading vlog. What I'm going to be doing is reading for 24 hours, not like 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. I will be reading for 24 full hours, timing it on the clock. Hopefully my clock app won't time out on me. I have a little mini challenge part of that as well, of trying to complete my book of the month goals. They have little reading challenges on their app, and I am 3 books away from fulfilling 3 of them, which is what you need to get like a badge. So I will be reading White Horse by Erika Wurth. This was my November 2022 book. I also have Middletide by Sarah Crouch, which is my May 2024 book. And lastly, I also have The Storm We Made by Vanessa, which is my December 2023 book, and I think this one is going to be the one that I start in on because it is also nominated on the Goodreads Awards for 2024 and of the first round at least. So I want to make sure I get to this because I'm realizing that I cannot vote in a lot of it because I haven't read a lot of the popular ones or the ones that people are choosing. Like, I thought I was keeping up with new releases this year more than usual, but I still have about 10 days before the first round closes and I can put in my votes. I'm excited. Come along with me if you're also behind on your book of the month books and fulfilling some challenges or didn't know about them. That is a little fun thing that they have on their app, and if anything, I'm fucking competitive. I'm heading out right now to go watch a musical, 6, and like I said, I will be bringing this with me. I went to go see 6 and I really liked it. It was funny, very cool, very short, and I did fall asleep a little bit on the train, but I have accumulated an hour and 25 minutes so far of reading The Storm We Made by Vanessa, which brings me to about 124 pages. This is a historical fiction novel about Malaysia before it became Malaysia, when it was still called Malaya during the Japanese occupation. I had to change out the battery. It's jumping timelines a little bit, or it's starting in like 1945 and going to the 30s. Cecily's family, her 15-year-old son has disappeared. Her younger daughter Jasmine has to hide in a basement to avoid being like a comfort woman. Her older daughter Jujubee has to serve tea in a cafe to drunk Japanese soldiers. She is also has been wanting to be more than this housewife. She becomes mesmerized by the dream that Japan promises in Asia for Asians and ends up becoming a spy, from what I understand, for this general, and it's spanning a couple of years and her family and how they're getting through the war. There's also different POVs. It is a very dark part of Japanese history that I have never learned about before. I went to Japanese school and they never talked about the occupation, so I think it's important for myself as a Japanese person to be reading literature about this as well. Like I said, because it's about a book during wartime and occupation, it is very heavy. It has a lot of necessary trigger warnings, mainly sexual assault, and it's a lot so far. I'm getting ready for the Casey Musgraves concert that I'm going to with my sister. Today I have only read about 2 hours and 15 minutes, so just under an hour from yesterday, which I'm not loving. I am loving the fact that I read over 100 pages today though. Making really great time. It would be great to finish this book today. Not sure how much reading I will get done when I get back, but I do still have quite a bit, about 100 pages left to read. Considering the fact that reading for 24 hours is really long, because it's I'm only counting the minutes that I'm actually reading. I might do other readings. I'm still working on a reading vlog that's probably already up by now, of reading non-fiction graphic novels, just so that I could get finished with that video since I only have 2 books left, and add that to my time. Goodreads tells me that I am 68% of the way through of my book, and jumping between the timelines of I think 1937 and 1945 can get a little bit confusing, especially because the children's ages are different in that time, although I'm pretty sure that Abel, were only following him in the 1945 timeline, so I'm not really sure how this book is going to finish. Cecily is definitely a really strong character. She's not your typical woman of the age. She likes to work and she likes to find meaning in her life in something other than just being a housemaker. I think that's really admirable, but she's also really hardcore pining after General Fujiwara that I don't like love about her, but it's also interesting because like her husband is on the British side and she's on the Japanese side, so I wonder how she like feels about her husband being that, whereas she's like the spy literally on the other side, and how she came to be, especially since they were already married when she became a spy. It is still kind of a tough read because it follows dark stuff. I think we're a little bit less past that now. The tone has still been very much the same. I'm just not really sure where the story is going, so that could really just make or break my ending thoughts and rating. It's my birthday. Coda and I are going to see a second movie this week. We're going to see Heretic. So I do need to get ready for that, but my hair is so wet from my shower. Last night I finished The Storm We Made after the Casey Musgraves concert. Very, very fun. But I finished this and I think I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I really did prefer Cecily's POV and Abel's in the prisoner of war camp in Thailand. Jasmine is really cute and it like does add to the story. I think he was necessary in the story, but I think Jujubee was just so unnecessary, totally forgettable, and didn't really need her part. I didn't really like connect really with any of the characters. I just had a lot more fun seeing what was going on in Cecily's mind. It's still a debut though, and I think I would still look for other books by this author and see where they can go from here, because the story itself was really great. I read this in about 3 hours and 2 minutes. I included the acknowledgements because I've grown to like really like reading acknowledgements, so I read that in 3 hours, 339 pages in 3 hours. I have right now 3 hours and 52 minutes because I read something else after I finished this in order to reach my goal of 250 pages last night, like yesterday. I am doing a buddy read with my sister, so I read that. The book that I have left is White Horse by Erika T. Wurth, which is a horror, I believe. Also a debut, because I have 3 like debut books that I needed left for the Book of the Month challenge, which I actually never really talked about. And then I also have Middletide by Sarah Crouch. This is crime fiction. They have earned the Book Boss badge, which there's only one of, and it requires you to read 15 books in the year. And I have 12 books so far. I also have for debut Darling, I have read 2 books and need 3 more of, which is why I have 3 of the Book of the Month books left. John Regini, which I don't have crime fiction. I haven't yet read horror. I just need 1 more of that. Beautiful. I just am unsure of which one I should read next. I'm sort of leaning horror, but I do need to add Storm We Made. I need to add that, finish that on Goodreads, Storygraph, and Book of the Month, so I will be right back. At this point, I'm also like ahead of my Goodreads goal, which I love. Let me just start my screen recording and I can show that I liked Storm We Made. I don't need to do a write-up of it. So then it added to Book Boss and Debut Darling, and now I just need 2 more books.
Surgeon, ready to hear the worst. Praying. Zealotly. And sagged, grabbing my arm. I held him up.
I finished White Horse by Erika T. Wurth. I didn't think I would finish it today, but I read a lot at the gym. Because Libby had this available on audio right away, I was able to multitask and do a bit of bullet journaling, setting up for the coming week. And I'm giving this 2.5 stars. I found it to be a little bit disappointing. I think categorizing this as horror is a bit of a stretch. The author themselves also just said in the acknowledgements that it is also, which I found surprising because I thought this was just being miscategorized. I would call this more of a mystery with a hint of paranormal. I didn't think it was horror at all. Unsure if this is even a debut, even though Book of the Month categorizes it as such. It just felt like this needed to go through another round of editing. I found it to over-explain things a lot of the time. There's just a whole entire paragraph, like a really big paragraph of just over-explaining and doing more telling than showing. It just felt a little bit bored. I was not very surprised or shocked by any of the twists. I didn't really care about any of the characters either. I don't mind a character being flawed, but there wasn't just any specific thing that made me want to like root for them either. However, in the author's note, the acknowledgements, I thought it was really cool that Erika T. Wurth thanked their partner, David Heskawamba-Waden, who I have read from before, who's another fellow author, and I picked out his book from Book of the Month also, which I thought was really interesting. interesting, and they have a really great writing community of native authors, which I thought was really awesome. So they have like this whole list of people that I can also check out. I'm 8 hours in, so I still have a long way to go. The book I'm going to be starting tomorrow is going to be Middletide. I couldn't find it on audio. There is a bit of a wait list for it. Maybe I can try to find another audiobook, because that would be a really great way for me to get into things. So far, I think I don't even know what I got myself into with this one again. Hello, I am actually reading a different book right now in between, just to rack up some hours, because I'm also doing another video. This one is already up of me reading some graphic nonfiction books, but right now I have 12 and a half hours in, so I'm halfway through. I am planning on like finishing this before getting into my next book, but I just wanted to say, hey, I still am reading. I'm racking up the hours, but I have run into a problem. Like I said with White Horse, this was my November 2022 book of the month. When I logged this in my book of the month app, it wasn't showing up. I was getting really confused until I remembered that book of the month, for their challenges, they do not allow every book that you have. So it has to be a book from 2023 and 2024 in order to count for your 2024 reading challenge. This means that I probably won't be able to complete the debut, darling, because I will still be one book short, unless miraculously I end up wanting to choose a debut book for my December book of the month pick, which I don't even know what those are going to be. Now, I probably will be able to complete Genre Genie, because I only have one book I need to complete for that, and Middletide is a new genre from a book of the month pick of this year. This makes me think about like probably what I would want to do when picking books that I read for a book of the month, like when choosing book of the month books. It is such a rainy day, but I am getting ready to grab drinks with a friend. I started Middletide at the Gym by Sarah Crouch. I read a little bit prior to getting ready as well, and am now 100 pages into this. It is not very long, but yikes. I'm already 100 pages in, and it's a little bit like rough around the edges. This is a debut. Sarah Crouch, the author, is actually a professional marathon runner. There are a couple different timelines. The body of Dr. Erin Landry has been discovered hanging from the tree of the prodigal son, Elijah Lee. So he's like suspect number 1, and it looks like the way that she died is from a book of Elijah's that has been mysteriously, anonymously sent to the police, saying like, you should look into Elijah, like this is definitely not a suicide, you should need to look into this. Elijah at 33 returns to his childhood home after attempting to become a writer in San Francisco, and it failed. So he's back restoring his cabin and hoping to rekindle the relationship with his high school sweetheart. Everyone thinks Elijah did it since it's on his property. He wrote the crime. It does have different timelines of now, which is in 1994, and I think when he's younger, like around 1988, 1990. It's a little bit boring. Elijah kind of sucks a little bit. He like failed writer, right? He graduated from college. His editor said that they would reach out to a publisher, and it failed, and he's like, oh my god, I'm never gonna write again, so embarrassed. Literally never tries again, which like, dude, you wanted to follow your dreams, like why don't you fulfill that? But he comes home, his dad is dead. He's like restoring the cabin where he grew up and living off of the land, and he's working as a mechanic where his father used to, with his father's best friend. And he's like, oh my gosh, this work is beneath me, like I'm so much better than working with my hands. I want to work with my mind, like I'm educated. A little annoying. I'm not really sure where this like storyline of him trying to rekindle his relationship with Nikita is going. He has seen her one time in town and nothing has come out of that. He might be getting to know the doctor a little bit. I'm wondering if they're supposed to have an affair or something. She's married to another rich man in town. The thing that's making me uncomfortable about this is that before the book even starts, there is like an author's note. The inspiration for the Squalama people and the Sacred Mountain Reservation is drawn from the author's personal experience with the indigenous people of Lumi and Navajo nations, meaning she totally made up this fake indigenous nation for the book. Super weird. This white lady did that. So there's that. And I'm reading this during like Indigenous Peoples History Month. Off to a rough start here. I like could DNF this at some point. Like usually when I'm like kind of bored before 100 pages or by the 100th page, I kind of just want to let it go, and I could still count this as for the book of the month app. But for the sake of the video, I feel like I could still go on. I'm not like truly bored, but it is really rough around the edges, and this author photo really creeps me out. I'm now like 16.5 hours in, which is great. I might have to pick out another book, honestly. I forgot that I was doing this for a 24-hour challenge. I wished I finished it yesterday, but I just sat here, read this with like the last 10 minutes or so. Solid 2 stars. I think this was trying really hard to be Where the Crawdads Sing, which I think this was marketed as fans for. There was a whole trial and everything. Like the main character is a recluse. They don't really have strong bonds with anyone in the community. They live far off. Like no one really knows about them. Yeah, bad. Where do I begin? The writing is okay. I feel like that was okay, but I think that Elijah was a really terrible character, really terrible man, person, really two-dimensional also. He's also like abusive, and then is trying so hard for Nikita. Like for a lot of the book, this was reading like a second chance romance, but not a good one. I really didn't see why Nikita and Elijah should have gotten back together. Wasn't seeing why she had any reason to say yes because he was pushing her back into the relationship. Like she's still grieving the death of her husband. He's like, he never would have wanted this for you. Like he would have wanted you to get back out there and be happy again. Like be in love with me. Choose me. Hello? It was really gross, really annoying. I really could have DNF'd this. I think Where the Crawdads Sing was like a little bit better in terms of like storyline and enjoyability. I enjoyed the movie a lot more. I have 20 hours and 8 minutes read, and I will be picking a new book. I'm going with Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors since it was my September book of the month pick. I know that it is a very popular book of 2024. I'm pretty sure it's also a Goodreads nominee. I'm a little bit nervous because it's literary fiction. However, with it being a story about sisters, I thought that I would want to pick this up being a sister myself. There are 4 sisters and one of them has died, and it's about the complexities of family and grief, which I actually like reading stories about grief and seeing how authors portray it, having gone through it myself and seeing like how my grief, the emotions that I felt, could be put into words. I'm 50%, 58% of the way through Blue Sisters, and I'm also less than an hour away from achieving my goal. The writing is really great. Like I said, with literary, it could be really hard for me to get into, but I'm already connecting with these characters so much. There's already the fact that I have a sister that I can connect to kind of that relationship. These 3 sisters are all estranged and dealing with the death of their one sister who kind of really kept them all together. I finally finished Blue Sisters yesterday, and I finished this challenge. I decided to keep the timer going to see how long it would take me to complete this book in its entirety, and I think with it being 342 pages, it took me about 4.5 hours. 24 hours and 43 minutes. I'm giving this book 4.5 stars. I was close to tears towards the end when they're starting to openly talk about their grief and how they're all dealing with it, how they're all rather not dealing with it, feeling about it, and how they need each other to lean on, because Nikki really was the glue of their sisterhood, their family. In the year of her passing, they all kind of felt like they were in this limbo, that they were just stuck, just existing to exist, not really living their life, and they all just didn't really know what to do with themselves anymore, and they were all kind of falling backwards, and I completely understand that feeling, and I'm really glad that they were all able to talk to each other, to sort of deal with it, and even yell at each other, have fights. Grief will really throw you for a loop. I just found the writing to be really beautiful. All the sisters, they're all so different, and the writing, I loved each chapter of them, learning about them, how much of a mess they were, and how I wanted to be rooting for them, how differently they were all dealing with addiction as a family. Literally as a family, they all had an addiction. In the epilogue, they were able to grasp control, and I loved how in the ending they were connecting as a family in a way that they haven't previously, and it was because of Nikki's death that it brought them even closer. I wanted to show you a little close-up of this cover and talk about my lineup for who I think each one looks like. Not necessarily a dream cast, just looks-wise who they look like, because it's fucking hilarious. First up, I believe this is the oldest sister. I believe she's Avery, and I'm gonna say Emma Mackey. The second one, I'm pretty sure this one's Bonnie. She's tough. She's giving Mina Suvari, or I was gonna say Leah Michelle. I think we're going down here, and this is Nikki, and it's giving Troye Sivan in a wig. Troye Sivan in that music video. And then lastly, this is the youngest. I think this is Lucky, the model. She straight up Mackenzie Davis. Like straight up, or Daisy Edgar Jones. Could see that, but Mackenzie Davis, super tall also. I honestly get the hype. I think it was a really beautiful story and loved the bond between these sisters. This was also a bit shocking because I think Nikki, the sister who passed away, is the same age as me. She's going through pains of endometriosis. She died due to an overdose. She couldn't manage the pain anymore and she just needed something to help her. All the sisters felt this guilt in a way of not being able to help her, which is like really hard reading about because it wasn't any of their fault. They couldn't have helped her. That part was so heartbreaking. Having read 24 hours, I looked and I have read 8 books. I think 2 to 3 of these are graphic novels. One of them is a novella. I completed 2,292 pages. That is so much. I'm kind of loving that I read so much. I feel really good. I also was able to complete 2 challenges for Book of the Month, and I got Book Boss as well as the John Regini. I also wanted to do a ranking of the 4 Book of the Month books that I ended up reading. Number 1 with the highest rating, Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. Second one, The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan. Great historical novel. I think a really decent debut. White Horse by Erika Wurth. The writing was a little bit simplistic at times. When you have dialogue going just straight through without clarifying who's saying it, great. But other descriptions were just like, oh, she said, he said, she said, instead of anything else. And I feel like if I noticed that and it bothered me. More description, maybe. And then I don't even want to talk about this. Middletide, I'm unhauling it. It's over for her. This was actually really fun. Please let me know if you've read any of these books. If you've done this challenge, I want to know all about it. I think I'm going to be working on a different type of how many pages I can read in a week video, possibly. And I'll see you all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!